Hello, everybody. This is Masha here, and I'm doing my beautiful series of podcasts called Extraordinary Women for Clear Skies. And today I have a privilege interviewing Nikki Florio. She is incredible. She has been researching our impact on environment. She has been researching environment around us. She's very close to nature. She has a rare talent that not a lot of us seem to have is to go deep into something and really understand the details of it. And the reason why I say it is that there are more and more of us who's starting to understand that what we see in the sky is abnormal. What we see in the sky doesn't belong there, and it looks like it's chemicals, it looks like something strange is happening, but we don't always know how they do it. What are they spraying? How are they able to generate the weather changes? And I could say that weather these days, and probably for the past more than 75 years, is uh, an illusion, right? It seems like, oh, it's raining. Oh, it feels like water. It feels like cloud layer, right? But was created, the clouds were created artificially, and what is come out of them is water, but what is in the water too, like lots of heavy metals and other chemicals. The same with snow. Why snow has a different melting point? Why snow smells like plastic? Why snow has a weird behavior? Why is it happening? Why the wind has a strange trajectory and movement? Why the sun is nowadays burning so much that sometimes you can be 5, 10 minutes outside and you can't take it. But imagine this, the trees, the flowers, the insect, the all the rest of our natural beautiful world. So yes, we're gonna get into all these topics. We're gonna get into details of it because it's important to know it. It's important to understand in our mind how they do it, and maybe it's easier for us than to come up with a plan how we can stop it, right? In the next few years, we can set a goal to stop geoengineering. Nikki Floria, please share with us. Nikki prepared beautiful presentation. You can start with the very beginning of it. Explain to us what they do to our skies.
Okay, thank you, Masha. Glad to be here. So we're going to go over to a presentation that I had done just a short while ago on different technologies in fire and weather. And this covers a lot of information. So some of the slides we'll spend a little bit of time on, and other slides we'll just go all the way through. Because some of the topics related to what we discussed earlier, what we want to share with your viewers, we'll kind of move through those. Now we're heading into a dangerously early summer. There's already this past week been a catastrophic wildfire in Nebraska, fueled by engineered winds that caused damage in a bunch of other states. We're seeing a lot of what's called weather whiplash, which is extreme weather going back and forth. But we're going to cover a lot of different issues within this. These are some of them, climate issues and impacts, and the different technologies that support each other, as well as weather solutions and water solutions. This is a pretty long presentation when I gave it, but we're gonna hit some highlights so that your viewers can kind of see what's going on. Uh, Current concerns involve the climate and the environment. All capitalism on Earth depends on natural capitalism, which is nature. So that drives our economy. And we are experiencing, horrible things within our own communities due to engineered weather and toxic foods and the whole collective of issues with pharmaceuticals related to the pandemic, and our food systems and ecosystems are collapsing. So within our planet, we really have to protect our ecosystems. We've completely forgotten about them. We're humans are very, very egocentric animals. But all life on Earth depends on elements, soil, water, air, and fire or sunlight. And we think of those things as nature, and they're not natural anymore. We can control all of those things, and we'll be getting into how we can control all of those things as we kind of go through. But Earth would not exist without pollination. And I run a project that's focused on technologies taking down food and ecosystems. And I named it Bee Heroic because almost everyone you talk to knows there's an issue with bees. And honeybees are one of the most important animals on Earth for their food and ecosystem services. But they're not just disappearing. All insects are disappearing. And insects are the base of a lot of food chains. So you have a cascading decline. And therefore, we are in the middle of a mass extinction event. Now, losing insect and bird and bat and small mammal populations that pollinate, ecosystems and deserts and food systems is horrible. Without them, we still have a little bit of pollination, but we only have wind and water pollination. So, we would still have grasses and trees and some flowering and fruiting plants, but not many. So we're kind of in a deep dive. When most people think of pollinators, they think about their yards and honey and their own neighborhoods. In food systems, what we eat is a huge part of how we protect the environment. And I used to run a project where I designed a conscious consumer program, and we taught about how what we eat, what we wear, what we buy, what we drive, how we choose to recreate, all of these things, how they impact the environment and how they impact our own physiology. So the things that we need to be concerned with today environmentally, as opposed to back in the late 60s, early 70s, environmentally, there were things that had happened. We had just, gotten past the nuclear arms race, but we had, blown up several thousand nuclear weapons in the sky and on the planet, and had to deal with agrochemical. But today we're dealing with a lot more than that, because we have military grade weapon systems that are given to us and sold to us as a little convenient, phone package. And then we have the foundation. In order for that to be able to work, we are engineering climatic systems, geophysical systems.
Mm-hmm.
So we cover a lot of things, the issues and impacts with the climate. We'll go through a few of these things fairly intensely, and some of them very light. Geoengineering is the very foundation of the entire Great Reset. Masha, did you talk about the Great Reset with your group,
With the viewers,
with your
in some
viewers?
of the articles, yep,
You did,
I
okay.
mentioned it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in order for the Great Reset to happen, just around the corner, they already have all the technologies they need in place in order to imprison us in smart cities. But if they don't have geoengineering, they can't do any of it, because you have to be able to control the atmosphere in order to control the world. LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, gave a talk in the early 60s at a university in Texas, stating that he who controls the weather will control the world, and is very true. But common military grade technologies like 5G and 6G are very bad for the environment and us. But everything is being sold as climate change, and people don't know really the difference between climate and weather. A lot of times they're used interchangeably, but generally weather is what's happening over the short term, over the next couple days, over the next couple weeks, and maybe a season. where climate is ongoing, decades or centuries um, of systems, cycles of systems that repeat or change. Now, the thing about nature, the first rule of nature is constant. I say this all the time. You don't magically have your hands and then all of a sudden a finger sprouts and you say, "Oh, we didn't notice that finger before." Um, so with the variables, the very first variable, and this is very simply put, but it's a generally the way things are. Season is your proximity to the sun. When you're closer to the sun and you have longer days, um, it's going to be warmer. The landforms, whether it's a desert or a mountain range or a prairie, including the types of plants that exist or don't exist there, will have an effect on the weather. The bodies of water and proximity to the water and the type of water, and then volcanic events, solar and space events, atmospheric gases and pressure, these are all part of what makes weather weather. And certain things happen consistently uh, because of these variables, and they have for hundreds of thousands to millions of years in different places throughout the planet. And we're experiencing all sorts of anomalous weather issues. And there are two different areas of thought from societies and individuals as to what's happening. One of them is that climate change is happening, and we're all taught this in school. When I was a kid, I was taught about global warming and the greenhouse effect. Um, and I have a degree in natural sciences, and I had meteorology, and that's what they taught us. But around 2009, I experienced my first thunder snow. And then after that, I ran an environmental education program, so I had meteorology. I knew what meteorology, I knew what weather modification was, but I had never heard of climate engineering or geoengineering. Had never heard the term chemtrails. But I started putting this information in the computer, and it kept coming up as geoengineering. And I thought, how could this exist if I had finished college just a short time before, maybe 5 or 10 years before, and never learned about the technology. So we're going to start with climate change, which used to be called global warming. And then in the early 70s, it was called greenhouse effect. And they had to keep changing the term because of what happened. Now, greenhouse effect has never occurred before or during or since this term came into action. If you think about your senses, when you walk into a greenhouse, generally very warm and very damp because of the warmth entrapped in there, traps the gases and the moisture. So you sometimes have water dripping down the walls, but sometimes there's dew on it, depending on what you're growing, where you're growing it, how it's growing. So it's a very moist atmosphere within there, very fragrant because the plants are releasing terpenes. There's high, healthy levels of oxygen because the plants are releasing oxygen and they're absorbing carbon dioxide. But you can go anywhere on the planet today. Oxygen levels are far lower than they were even just a few decades ago. Um, uh, all areas across the planet, there's not as much dew on the ground. There's not as much fog as there used to be. The atmosphere is completely dry. Um, and then as far as fragrance goes, when I was a kid, you could drive up to the forest, go through the mountains and drive into the forest, and you would be, hit in the face with this wonderful pine scent. And if you drove down to the desert from there, you would smell the sage all year round, especially if it rained. It would be a rich, sage that pinches your nose. If you went to the coasts, I lived a couple hours from the Pacific Ocean. We would drive through the valley, go up over the coastal range, and when you came down to where the ocean was, you were hit with this salty, briny smell, and it was great. It filled your nostrils. Well, you can go through any of these areas today. The ocean is still there. The entire ocean is still there. You barely smell it. The chemistry of the ocean has changed. The air has changed. You don't smell the forest. You don't smell the deserts. Even you could be driving down the road behind a truck filled with garlic and you barely smell the garlic. Um, so in agriculture, there's a lot of things that are changing, but none of it is due to cow farts or tailpipes. It's due to geoengineering. Now, carbon dioxide, you don't want to really horribly upset gases in the atmosphere. I'm not saying that emitting the amount of carbon that we emit today is not a bad thing. But we're going to show you that it's not the reason that we're having these issues with change. And carbon dioxide is important to plant life all over the planet. It's so important in greenhouses and grow houses that they actually purchase commercial generators so that in the winter they can still grow whatever crop or plant or flower they're growing. We all know that there's all sorts of issues occurring with different temperatures and temperature extremes and droughts and flooding and freezing events. And we have issues with trees and plants and flowers that get plenty of water, the same plants that have already been there. All of our older trees, some of our ancient trees are completely dying, and so are a lot of the newer trees. They're taking out blocks and blocks and miles of trees
Oh,
that
yes.
are,
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that are dying from the inside out. Now, this is an image from a Colorado forest. Colorado is one of the global hubs of geoengineering. It's got NASA and NOAA and UCAR and NCAR, and also, different massive military corporations like Raytheon that partner with these guys.
Mm.
And they've been doing geoengineering over Colorado for years and years. So their forests are completely shot. Now they started taking down the forest slowly with geoengineering, and then it got more intense until they had these huge bark beetle infestations, and then they just blamed it on the bark beetles. But in riparian zones or wet zones in the valleys, and the crevices of the mountains, and this is a lot of the larger mountain ranges, you have wet zones, you have these riparian zones, but even the trees in the riparian zones, while the undergrowth is okay, the trees themselves are dying the same way as the other plants. And there's so much radiation today that plants are developing abnormally. None of these has a natural Fibonacci sequence that you're supposed to have in a composite flower like that. Now, a lot of people today are also jumping on the anti-geoengineering bandwagon without really knowing what it is. And it's one thing to point to the sky and say, "Oh, look, they're spraying us. Look at the chemtrails." Chemtrails it's a misnomer. It's not a conspiracy in and of itself because in the late 1990s, the U.S. Air Force had a chemtrails manual, and you can research that just by simply Googling chemtrails manual U.S. Air Force. You can also find it at the Be Heroic website, but there's a great historical website called uh, weathermodificationhistory.com that has a great list of history and patents and all that stuff. So um, anyway, this is the general terminology from the science foundations in university: deliberate large-scale intervention in Earth's natural systems to counteract climate change. Now, weather is one of the systems that's natural on Earth. But even in University of Leeds and Stanford University and Harvard and the other geoengineering universities, they don't really tell you the whole thing that's going on. The
Oh, no,
rest of
no. It's
geoengineering,
interesting. Sorry for interruption. It's
yes, no.
one time I thought, what if I just go into universities and call them up to find out what they teach in geoengineering a degree, right? So I went on their websites and there were several universities, and I just read, and it looks so beautiful how they described it. There is no mention of modification of weather. There is no mention of manipulation, anything. It just says in some, terms that you participate in improvement and enhancing. You just use the different words. And when I read it, I even wanted to call them and say, I thought geoengineering was about manipulation of weather. Why doesn't it say in the degree, right? Because they're alluring those students to get in there and they think, oh, I'm going to be helping the earth. Turns out to be it's directly the opposite, right?
Mhm. So in the other presentation we discussed before the show, the PSYOP,
Is
we
this
cover,
IOP, right?
yeah, we cover one of the sections is on education, uh, how young adults today have been indoctrinated in certain ways and taught specific terms and repetition in those terms and things like that. So in order to spend, untold trillions of dollars on a technology, you have to study it. So that's what the science foundations are studying it, and they're providing information, but you can reverse engineer anything you want, and that's how they make deadly drugs. They reverse engineer, and that's how they do a lot of things that the shadow government does, and the military industrial complex does. So science foundations, and one of the objectives is to help. They have two objectives in science foundations, stated goals: block sunlight to help cool the earth, and the second one is remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But the military objectives are different. Warfare is that, and market and commercial geoengineering is for profit. Now, there's a ton of research in about this. This isn't even close to how many R&D institutions there are. The ones that are in red are just highlighted because most people are familiar with them, uh, that study geoengineering. So these are Stanford University does its own geoengineering program. Oxford does. So this is just a quick infograph of what they are studying. So with the different technologies, what are the most effective and what are the most affordable, and then which ones are safe, uh, and how impactful are they if they're not safe. So green is a very safe technology. Orange is pretty dangerous. Red is extremely dangerous. So CCS is carbon sequestration at the source. So if you have a tailpipe and it's releasing carbon, if you just put a filter on there to catch the carbon, problem solved. We have billions of cars on the road. Nobody has thought to put a carbon capture and storage plug at the end of on the out. And you could even use that carbon dioxide in a productive manner once it's captured. But oh no, we're going to keep the simplest solution, and no one has thought of it magically. That's absolutely not true. Now, that's pretty affordable and pretty effective. Afforestation means planting millions of trees. Very should be eco-friendly, but it's not. Um, so it's extremely affordable. Get plants and saplings and plant them. The reason they have it so low on the effective range is because because it takes 30 years to grow a forest at the very least. Forests are generally not going to start sequestering reasonable amounts of carbon until they're 30 years old, up to hundreds to a thousand years old. So the reason I said it's not really a good thing is because when science foundations discuss anything with plants, whether it's crops or trees, they're discussing genetically engineered
Mhm.
forests and
Mhm.
crops. Uh, Monsanto and other agrochemical companies are already making aluminum resistant seed genetically engineered forests. They've had genetically engineered forests in Florida for decades now, starting in the way early 2000s. But I think they had genetically engineered eucalyptus, but there's genetically engineered pines and a bunch of other trees, as well as genetically engineered grasses. So on the right, they discuss the technologies how ready the technologies are, how much they cost. Now, this is an older graph. So for space mirrors, which they already use, and we've been using this since the 1950s. I mean, in Russia in the 1950s or late 50s or early 60s, they were using space mirrors to move sunlight, manipulate sunlight into areas where you didn't have it before. But the US does it, NASA uses it. It's a very, it's a very well-known technology in the geoengineering world.
Oh,
Aerosols are
me ask
extremely
you, let me ask you a quick question.
yes, yes.
One time I saw two suns. There was one sun, and then I was with my children too, and we saw another one. Is this the use of that technology? Did I see possibly one of those? That
So for the second sun and the third sun, so those are pretty common. You can just type
uh-huh.
two suns in on YouTube or second sun. Mainstream media had done a mainstream media did an article on the second sun about 3 or 4 years ago, and can send that to you if you want. It's complete BS. But there are theories that it could be Nibiru or Nibiru, however you pronounce that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard that too. Yeah.
Or it could be a satellite, or it could be something that the shadow government's working on that could possibly be a second sun source, or it could be this. Yes.
Yeah.
So what you guys saw is very real. I videotaped it one time and photographed it, and this is the second time in a period of 5 years that I had seen it. But I don't carry my phone with me all the time, so the first time I didn't film it, but I filmed it out of an airplane. And I was flying. I had to go to Hawaii, so I had to fly. I couldn't take a ship there. I hate flying. Um, and the people sitting next to me, or the woman sitting next to me, I said, "Look at this." I said, "Do you see this second sun?" And she's on her phone like this. I said, "Look at it. Look at this sun." I said, "Do you see that thing next to it?" And she goes, "Uh-huh." Like her mouth is hanging open. Uh-huh. And I said, "Do you know that's unnatural?" And she goes, "Oh." And then I was
Back
like
to
in
the
the
cell phone.
twilight zone. A regular, just girl, middle class, regular girl sitting next to me, brain dead, just vacant. And it blew me away. Anyway, we got to kind of go through these. So
Sure.
people say, oh, you can't possibly, engineer a bunch of planes and they can't be spraying. Well, it's very easy to engineer planes. This is David Keith. And I'm just going to kind of shorten this whole article up. He says you can create geoengineering aerosols in a jet in a simple way. You just re-engineer existing aircraft. So you can go to a firm and say, we want this done. They say, okay, yes, we can do it. And these are based on risk to risk decisions. They're pretty cheap to deliver to the atmosphere. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandkids. So he was asked the question about aluminum and health impacts by Dane Wigington, who attended the meeting, and he says, or he did state this somewhere within the meeting. You can see this on their website, but the YouTube video is from Dane Wigington's interview. So he says the alumina or aluminum impacts on human health. We've only begun to research and publish nothing. So there could be something terrible that we'll find tomorrow. We haven't looked at it. Now, we've known for several decades that nano aluminum is extremely dangerous, but he is a huge investor in geoengineering. Bill Gates is a huge investor in Harvard's research solar geoengineering program, and Gates and David Keith are both co-owners of a carbon dioxide removal company. So on another note, there's universities like University of San Diego that promote geoengineering. And they say, they're talking about Professor Kate Ricky. It says her new research will bring light to the understanding of how geoengineering can mitigate climate change effects while accounting for its uncertainty of its scientific and social impact. Well, it doesn't say anything about the environmental or human health impact. which is even bigger. So tons of
Mhm.
money goes into geoengineering all the time. There's a huge funding web. The bulk of funding for all the projects comes from the US taxpayer. The National Science Foundation is chaired or on the is boarded or chaired by Bill Gates. Pfizer, Fund for Innovative Climate, Energy, and Research, is another Bill Gates. Now, he's not the only billionaire. There are tons of billionaires, including Musk, that are huge investors. These are some of the universities that get extremely well funded from geoengineering. These are their project websites. And then if you want the document, you can contact us and we'll send you the document so you can look further. There is a group called Solar GeoENG, and they have also done an outline of the countries that fund geoengineering, the different projects, the think tanks, and everybody. All of the blue that you see here is all the United States. Most of the funding comes from billionaire investors, comes from tech companies, comes from big oil and energy companies, etc. So the military, every day the military is conducting weather warfare or geo warfare. Remember, geoengineering is intervention in Earth's natural systems. So everything from earthquakes to volcanic eruptions to weather issues are all part of geo warfare. And in 2025, there was a document that was written called Owning the Weather in 2025, or Weather as a Force Multiplier. But there were
Yes, yes.
preceding documents, and these are three of hundreds of well-known, fully published uh, documents on all sorts of things from uh, modification programs, problems, policy, and potential. So the potential part is not for beneficial weather modification, it's for warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Boulder, Colorado did a hurricane modification meeting in 2008, I think right after Hurricane Katrina, but before Harvey. And their meeting was based on studies that were done way back in the 70s. So none of this technology is new. By 2009, Air University, the Air Command and Staff College discussed weather weapons that could be localized by 2030. You could have a community, and if you had the right electromagnetic infrastructure, like 5G, for example, you could create specific weather and just destroy a single town if you wanted, or you could do a state or a country. So this is the document I was talking about earlier. The goal is to own the weather in 2025. So last year was a huge year, but in the preceding years, from 1996 until then, they already had the technology in place. It was being refined. We already had a telephone in 1996. Some of them were still dial, rotary, some were push button. We had a little machine that you could leave a message on. Didn't take pictures, didn't give us maps, didn't give us more information than the entire NASA thing did before they pretended to go to the moon. So when we use our phone today, this extraordinary technology, that's the jump that they've made in weather. And back then, they could already make it rain and snow with antiquated technologies. They could create or dissipate fog if they wanted to with these technologies, build cloud layers, do all sorts of things. Now they had to get permission from Microsoft, or Microsoft. Bill Gates gave them the clip art. So that could have been when he first learned about this technology. Now it covers how you have a command control center, a weather operations, weather modification center. You have an air ops center, and then you can deploy or control drones or airplanes or ground-based systems or satellite systems. You have feedback on cause and effect, feedback through a communications, fixed loop communications. You could forecast data, create forecasts that you could easily then manipulate. So and that was way back then. Going back to the 60s was the first very well-known, right after Vietnam, where the public, everyone had access to television, but where Operation Popeye occurred. Now they could have used this technology, this rain enhancement technology, to flood out the Ho Chi Minh Trail and stop supplies from going in and out to North Korea. They could have stopped it the first day, but they wouldn't have made as much money. The military-industrial complex makes money on everything. The result of this was that they created a um, treaty called the NMOD Treaty, an international agreement where people would agree to not use weather for warfare. Now, it's a very soft agreement. Even the military says, we can agree to this, but there's so many ways around it, it doesn't matter. So that's documented in one of the reports. So this is an older one. This is called the cloud curtain. They used this during World War II. They would do it off the coast, and it would hide U-boats and submarines and troops coming in and out. So on a still day, you can create this big cloud curtain. I'll go back a bit so you can see it. So this thing can go for a couple miles if you wanted. Turn it on and off, because you can, when you retrofit systems on airplanes, you can turn systems on and off. So there's a lot of different weather programs and things going on in the military. This little video isn't working right now, but this is called the TMC 65. With this, you can set these on mountain ranges or in valleys and create massive, you can see this cloud. This thing is only as big as like a little minivan, if you, just for reference, but it can fill in an entire valley in like 15 minutes. If you put a couple, you could do a massive engineered system. And this is a ground-based system that the military used, but you can deploy these same things from planes. So the big moneymaker in geoengineering is commercial geoengineering. And all of the objectives in geoengineering, science, commercial, and military, they all cross over each other. They all utilize each other's services and information and things like that. And while the general public hasn't heard of this, billionaires all know about this. Tech billionaires, energy billionaires, etc. They all know about this. Weather is traded. There are different countries that do geoengineering projects independently. A lot of them are very public. Russia and China are very public about their geoengineering and weather modification programs. Israel is not public, nor is the US. All of our, we fund the geo warfare in the US and Israel. And I'm not talking about Judaism. I'm talking about kind of this Zionist agenda, kind of the way we still have our Nazi agenda from Operation Paperclip.
Right.
NASA is basically a bunch of the Nazis that we brought over. So there's something going on out there. So this is a partnership on this page between Canada and India, obviously. So in this document, they discuss the projects that are occurring, the agencies involved and companies involved, the types of projects, and the status of the project. So, for example, afforestation. Can you see my cursor on here, Masha?
Oh, my eyesight a problem, but I can see, yeah, yep,
Oh,
once
okay.
with my
So I'm
glass.
pointing to this section. So the agencies are the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change, and then the Japanese International Cooperation Agency. And they're doing afforestation, but the Ministry of Environment there's nowhere that discloses if it's a natural plant or a genetically engineered forest plant. And they're doing this for carbon capture and storage, and the process is completed. So down here is an oil refinery because commercially controlling weather or capturing carbon so that you can get carbon tax dollars. You can add extra taxes to your own product. So they capture the carbon, and this is an ongoing project. And then you have military projects that are occurring under this as well, oil sands projects and seeding programs. So weather modification is not really, it's not at all, in fact, geoengineering. A lot of people are working to stop it, but if you stopped geoengineering, that's what you need to stop. Sometimes with wildfires, they do things called setting backfires. And that's where the term fighting fire with fire came from. And so if you have a big wildfire or a big prairie grasslands fire, the fire's coming and it's really windy and you can't control this massive thing, but you set up an area where you can control it and you make sure that you have a safety net on that, and you set the fire and you let that burn. So when the fire comes, it's out of fuel. By the time the fire makes it to that area, whether you've felled trees or burned trees out or set something up next to a stream, it doesn't matter. You can fight fire with fire. And for some areas in the United States right now, and I don't like to say this, but sometimes their only protection against geoengineering, engineered drought, and things like that are to utilize weather modification. They need sometimes to have a cloud seeded or a system seeded so that they can have water, or to put water in a reservoir for drinking water or for a community. Sometimes that has to happen if we're in these extended engineered droughts. Sometimes you have to rain a system out in order to keep horrific flooding from occurring. But you don't want to become dependent on it. If you stop it, if you stop this only single intervention, this only backfire, along with geoengineering, you get in trouble. But what's happening is we have state legislators and attorneys and a bunch of people that they're all jumping on the anti-geoengineering bandwagon. Oh, we have to stop this. And they don't learn about the scope or depth of issues, who's involved, which weather modification companies are dangerous, which weather modification companies are safe, who is doing geoengineering. None of them are safe. I can tell you that. None of them are safe, or even beneficial in any way. But right now, because people are blanketing weather modification, geoengineering to stop everything, geoengineering has been going on for decades. It's intensified since the early 2000s, and since the beginning of just before the beginning of the pandemic, it exploded, especially with a lot of different materials, even though a lot of materials are being used before then. So the ozone is now so damaged, and this is what you just discussed, Maria. So the ozone layer, we now have regular UVC radiation coming in, and that's what's causing the burning, and it's quick burning. And when they spray in the wintertime, when they spray in the wintertime ice nucleation chemicals to cool the area down, it's very icy. So the cold isn't just cold, it actually burns you.
Right, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can be outside
Yes, but it
for extended
destroys,
periods.
yeah. So the barium in the spray, general spray is aluminum, barium, strontium with ice nucleation chemicals dispersed in there. The barium destroys the ozone. And then the freezing doesn't allow you to really feel how hot the sun is. But if the wind slows or stops, even if the air is cold, your skin feels like you're standing next to a wood stove. And this has been increasing and increasing. Some of us noticed it, in different areas way back in 2016, 2017, and then it got more and more and more. Now everybody notices it, especially older people who know what natural weather is. Okay, so to go to weather exchanges, there's a lot of money to be made from the weather. Controlling the weather, though, benefits the military, agrochemical, telecommunications, energy transportation across every aspect from mountains and prairies to oceans. And then there's also mining issues, agriculture or agrochemical, pharmaceutical even. So these are regular weather modification companies that utilize fairly antiquated technologies. So some of these are for companies like Edwards Aquifer Authority, and then military stuff like Naval Surface Warfare Center, but there's also cloud seeding programs. And so Weather Modification Incorporated, this is an older slide. It says that nearly half a century of successful programs. Now, this slide is about 10 years old. So now it's been, whatever, 60, 70 years. But there's also Silver Lining, which is a company that Bill Gates is involved in. And this is a geoengineering option, but they have been executing projects for a very long time in and of itself. There's also ground-based ionizers that can help in small areas, like for weather modification, that you can set up in an extreme drought area that's less dangerous than cloud seeding, but not great for the environment. Certainly not no interference in natural weather is good for the environment, but some people use weather modification just for personal benefit. So in sports, for example, when you see an extreme ice storm during a football game, that's an engineered storm because we have the technology to stop it. If it's supposed to be pouring during a professional baseball game and they know it's coming, you can hire a local, get a state permit and hire a local weather modification company, or one from overseas like Oliver's Travels, and pay about $100,000, and they will seed the system and it'll rain out before it gets to you. So then you have a sunny day. You do this for weddings, you do it for games, anything. So commercial geoengineering is one thing, or commercial weather modification is different. This is from climateviewer.com. Jim Lee's got a great technological brain. His site is extraordinary. I found out about him probably a little over a decade ago or so. And he has a great collective of information on the different technologies. Now, it's very common today. Ionospheric heaters are all over the northern and southern hemisphere. We use sounding rockets, lasers, technology, satellites. The aerosol technologies, though, those are used over in a variety of ways. Commercial and military airplanes that have been retrofitted. And remember, even David Keith admitted it's really easy. You just add a tank and you can funnel the nanomaterial into an existing nozzle that's supposed to be there for a different reason, that's not being used. So you can add stuff to the fuels or just use a regular aerosol. We also have sounding rockets and balloons, and then over the oceans. This is one of the most catastrophic utilizations of the aerosols because these have created a cloud cap over the ocean. These clouds, they perpetually spray over the ocean with these huge transoceanic liners and cargo ships, so that we now have a cloud layer over the ocean that there might be an area that has several hours or maybe a day of open sunlight, but no more. Where we used to have all these swirling systems that went around the planet. Now it's just a big, filthy blanket. Yeah, none of this stuff's working today. So
Right.
ionospheric heaters are pretty big. The cloud ionizers I discussed earlier, laser technologies. way back in 2021, Dubai had used lasers to shock rainwater out of clouds. It did cause some flooding, but after the pandemic started, and this got a lot of people to jump on the anti-geoengineering bandwagon. There was a second flood out there, and they said, "Oh no, it's the news blamed it on cloud seeding operations." But one of the researchers found out there were only like two or three planes doing the cloud seeding that could not have possibly caused that flooding. Now, the flooding occurred in the same manner as this flooding did, but no one looked into this laser beam. So all the freedom fighters and all the attorneys that now started off with good intentions, but now just need to stay in the spotlight. They're not doing due diligence and researching. So they said, oh, it was cloud seeding, so we got to get rid of cloud seeding. And most companies, especially if you have a $1 trillion city, are not going to hire some hack to cloud seed that could possibly cause a problem with your weather. So China, years ago, for economic reasons, wanted to build a rainmaking system. One of the reasons they took over, I think they were trying to take over Tibet for years. Yeah. So that area is great because it feeds a handful of major rivers that run hydroelectric dams. So if you can control water for, a few $1 million and make tens of millions or hundreds of millions on the back end, that's what you want to do. Now, a side benefit of that was that it did help their agriculture as well. But they're a lot more open than that. And then they ended up adding several million more square miles to it. And that's not their only program. Russia is also very open about what weather modification programs. A friend of mine from New York told me that when she was a kid, she grew up out there, she says there used to be announcements, we're going to be seeding clouds this, and this was in I don't think she's as old as me, so probably the 1980s. But she says, yeah, we were told about weather modification, which today they're using geoengineering as well, as you can see by the satellite images. The whole world is
Right,
using.
right. And this year, Moscow, I don't know about other parts of Russia. I'm sure they had snow non-stop, just non-stop. It's freezing weather and non-stop snow. And to people, it feels like, well, sometimes there are some years that are more snowy.
Yeah.
Other areas are more less snowy, but this is just it just doesn't stop. It's like every day it's freezing and blizzard. People can get out of the snow. This is not natural, right? This is geoengineered, and of course, Russia is not really open about it. They might talk about cloud seeding, but I don't know if they openly talk about how they make snow, right? For for Russians to
Yeah.
learn that, oh no, this is all snow that we're getting is not natural.
Well, currently, yes. Yeah, currently, yes. They do. So the thing is that they might tell you, but you might not know where to look.
Right, exactly,
But
exactly, exactly.
yeah. And
Yes.
then for entertainment purposes, these are just a couple examples. In '08, they didn't halt rain for the Olympics. They seeded the system as it came in to get rid of the moisture. So it dropped the moisture. And
Mm.
then by 2022, the Olympics during just after the lockdowns or whatever, the early pandemic, um, they made all nucleated snow. It was a first fully engineered winter event.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we used to see natural clouds that built up on a hot day. For example, off of rangelands and croplands, it gets hot, you build up a cumulus cloud, a cumulonimbus cloud, and then it rains out. Or if it's cold and windy, we rarely see white clouds. We rarely see cumulus clouds. We rarely see natural uh, any type of natural systems, even natural fog. We see chemical smog today, chem smog, that
Oh,
has
yes.
either no droplets on the ground, you never see dew on anything. You'll have a fog layer, but no moisture on the ground, no dew. So there's not enough for that.
Right.
Also, with rainbows, you rarely see single rainbows, and you rarely see these 14-degree or lower arch rainbows. Today, you see these big double chemical rainbows or odd clouds. The sun is a
Oh, yes.
blinding blob. Yeah.
Real humongous rainbows.
So,
Uh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
so let me ask you quick questions just for people who are discovering it. So they can make wind, right?
Yeah, wind can be created or halted. It's called wind stilling.
How do they do with the wind? What kind of technology they use to generate that force?
They can use heat energy weapons, um, or they can stall thermal winds by blocking sunlight in certain areas. So it's we'll get into that.
Gotcha. Yep. That's what, and then they can, of course, we discussed they can make snow. They can, let's say they make snow, they make wind, they make rain, right? They make hot days too, especially hot days. Plus, we're naturally already erasing the ozone layer, so there it is, we're getting more of the radiation coming right? And it's burning hot. And so they do make this weather whiplashes where the temperature drops so severely, going from 25 degrees Celsius to -1 or -4 Celsius, right? Within hours, they do that.
Yes.
Right, they do that using the chemicals, using uh the wireless technology, all kind of it's an elaborate system, right? When you listen to it, you think, oh my gosh, this is needs to be studied in university. And I for 4 years, so I can understand how to do it if you were to actually wanted to participate in it because it does have a lot of pieces to
Well,
it.
the students don't learn about all of that.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
they don't learn about that.
yeah.
It's on the job, right? You come into the job and then they start, and that's two things that people I feel like all of us cannot answer is how can the pilots do that, right? They see what they do from the ground. They see how nasty it is.
So yes, but the um, pilots have no idea, especially the younger ones, have no idea what a natural sky is. Um, and as you saw on the document Owning the Weather, the control of geoengineering, which includes the release of aerosols, is done from a control center, not from the FAA center. Commercial planes and commercial transport, um, like big Airbuses like UPS and Amazon, they are leased out by either the federal government or whoever's executing the geoengineering projects. And so the tanks that are installed in planes in different areas and the lines, those retrofits are done without the knowledge of
A pilot.
of the pilots. Now, a pilot can do a run around the plane, but he's not the mechanic for the plane. A
Got you.
mechanic can look at a plane and see the tanks that are supposed to be there and the lines and but if it's been retrofitted or a material has been inserted into a tank that was meant for something else but can still be turned on and off remotely, even the mechanic isn't going to know if the person flying the plane doesn't say, hey, can you check this out for me? So
Right. So sometimes it's them not knowing it. Sometimes they don't know, even if they are employed to do the
yeah,
spraying.
well, I
They
mean, we
just
have
don't know
physicians that
the
still we have physicians that don't know about the human body or diet.
Oh, that is exactly my analogy all the time in my mind. We're surprised about the pilots. We think, oh, there's some kind of evil. But here we are, go to our doctors, and they still promote the same vaccines. They still promote the same things. So we shouldn't be surprised. It's just the level of our brainwashing, the level of our unawareness, no desire, right? Like that lady you described who was scrolling, no desire to even get inquisitive about where we live in, right?
Hmm. Yep,
So
yep.
what are we doing? So yes, yeah, that could be explained. And then another question that people are perplexed about, one last point, is that um, and you covered it very well, who benefits and why they destroying our planet. They live on this planet, but then it is a much deeper conversation about who controls this planet, what is the different species, like we talked about. I mean, so yes, it's definitely a big, big, big answer, and people not understanding the shadow of it, right? It's hard to see that, hard to explain. Whenever I see somebody in the park and they say, "But why are they doing it?" I say, "Well, to destroy." But why are they wanting to destroy? And then, of course, it's like, well, it's just a whole, you have to make a whole monologue. And then if people are interested, they can check it out. But tell me quickly, and I'll let you go because it's already time. Tell me quickly what each of us can do, what a mom can do, right? Busy mom can do, what students, what each of us can do something to start moving at least towards the uh stopping it, right? Because we can't allow it to go on because I don't know what's going to be in 10 years. How we're going to survive here? We may not survive in this environment.
So if people want to really take action, they need to educate themselves first
Mm-hmm.
and
First
foremost
is
on
educate.
education. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's more than just being aware and looking up in the sky and saying, "Oh, this the sky is being blocked, or they're spraying today," or the best thing they can do is put their phone down and
Right.
yeah, put their phone down and pick up a book or a computer that where they can learn about geoengineering. And it's sometimes difficult to find a place to start. So I've been an educator for years. So I have a bunch of these presentations. I don't have them. I have one on my website. And then also on my website, I have on the geoengineering page, I have a geoengineering and environment page. People can scroll down
Oh, yeah,
and
that page is excellent. I've been sharing it and telling them this is the best page you've ever find to have all information on one page.
so it covers issues and technologies. I have one of the first documentaries I ever saw on geoengineering was from 2007, and it's called "Why in the World Are They Spraying?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's a good place to start. I also do presentations for groups, so I do specific presentations for uh, geoengineering and health, or geoengineering in the environment, or farmers and ranchers, or uh, physicians, or political groups. I have a legal presentation. I have a couple hundred presentations that we do or modify because there is a lot of information. It doesn't mean you have to spend, 8 hours a day looking, but when you sit down, stuff yourself like it's Thanksgiving. Do like a 2 hour thing and take some notes and see what you don't know as opposed to what you already know. And and highlight what's important. And then the next day, go back and look at just those little points again. And that will help start to ingrain and allow you to conjoin these things. Um, so that's a really big deal. We have been indoctrinated through media and language to think
Cartoon,
certain.
cartoons, every cartoon has got this stuff in it.
Mhm. Yep, yep. So it's hard to step outside of this box. The whole thing is designed so that by 2030, they said in the document, weather is a force multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. They didn't say, we might have some of it. They meant owning, and they owned it long before that document finished. And the same thing is happening with the Great Reset. A lot of people are already transhuman. They already have material in their body, um, metals and biologic agents and self-assembling nanomaterial, all kinds of stuff we have in our body. So detoxing is important, as you know. But for
Right.
the environment, you have to protect the environment while you protect the environment. In order to do this, if you have a farm or a garden, you need to get the material out of the soil, because nanomaterial is not like someone dropping a piece of plastic on the ground and you can just pick it up. If you want to clean your soils out, you can do that through things like biochar or zeolite, which will bind metals. Zeolite is really a really good metallic binder, but
Well, there's a whole, there's about the zeolite. It should be a different conversation, but zeolite itself contains heavy metals. Uh,
so you want, yeah. So some you have to get high quality for your body. For things like Morgellons, you can use boron or borax,
right,
or
right,
do
right.
for toxins and uh, vaccines are being infected. You can do EDTA therapies, and I'm sure you have way more than we do. But um, cleaning the soil and cleaning your water, making sure your water is clean. There's a company that had approached us because they wanted to work with farmers and fire agencies to clean up the soils after fires and after big geoengineering operations. And their material picks up a lot of the materials in geoengineering, including aluminum, barium, and strontium, but also several radionuclides. Also binds glyphosate. It's a positively and negatively charged patented char from clean sources like old forests that had beetle killer, that had already had fires going through. And there's now probably thousands of biochar companies, but only a handful of them are really very solid, good, that cover a lot of different areas in relation to cleaning toxins from chemicals and geoengineering elements and things like that. But I'm going to stop this share for a second.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that was what we just went through was a very small part of that full presentation, but we could pick up on that anytime you want. We can discuss fires or flooding, hurricanes. I've done hurricane presentations and ag presentations, and if
Awesome.
yeah,
That was great. Yes, 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 yes. It's at least a start, right? We have to start somewhere.
yeah.
We have to do something, because not doing anything is just getting worse and worse by the year, right? And I sent you that video of Elizabeth April, and she talks about through remote viewing. Or maybe I didn't send it to you. Maybe I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
send
I
you.
saw.
I send it. So yeah, she talks about how she saw in the next 10 years there will be an outcry. There will be an outcry. I just wonder in my head how right now it should be an outcry, right? We are right now seeing, experiencing, we are there, but how are we gonna get to the outcry? I am wonder
Well,
that was
there
energetic.
is in certain circles, there are a lot of people taking action. The US is still a little bit behind other countries, but other countries are also the
Oh,
the active countries are smaller. So
oh, all right. Which countries are active? I never hear this information. Who is doing
so
any?
there's a great website. Um, well, Hands Off Mother Earth Home.
Oh,
There's a
hands up,
listing, but
Mother Earth.
there are groups in Italy and Spain and France and a couple others that have great groups. Maybe not so much though. I'm not talking about the whole country because most countries don't know. But as far as very proactive organizations in the UK, and some of them are crossover geoengineering and 5G. Anyway, um, what I was going to say is we don't have 10 years.
Oh,
Agriculture,
yes, we don't have 10 years.
yeah.
Yes, that's what I mean. That even seeing it in the future, we need to be acting now. Would it make sense to organize the way we always think about the same thing? Let's organize, let's create an organization, let's fundraise, and then use this money to do either through legal support or through education. We'll think the same. Kat doesn't think it's a good idea because whenever you do fundraising, you always spend money on something else, and that doesn't seem to be helpful. Every time you participate in fundraising, funds disappear,
Well,
right?
yeah. So she and I both worked with a woman who owes me.
Renette, right, Renette, and then she kind of just used the money for something else, and so now we're burnt, right? We're like, oh yeah, we're traumatized about that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, she did what she did, but unfortunately, the problem, and I don't know if I talked to you about this before. I have contacted several attorneys who are on. They did the same thing, jumped on the anti-geoengineering bandwagon. The amount of time that you and I spoke today, they will not spend learning about geoengineering. They say, just send me something to read. And I'm like, what? I have well over 10,000 documents. I have a couple, well over 100 presentations. Some are only an hour, some are 2 hours. I have workshops that are 8 to 10 hours. You know what? You can't learn it that way. You learn the way that I just showed you today is the easiest way. If you don't know what the objectives are, you don't know what the technologies are, or you don't even know where to start. Everyone
Right,
starts with aerosols. We have to stop the aerosols. We have to change the legislation on aerosols. Well, what is the impact? And why are you stopping the aerosols instead of going after
you
the
need to stop the
airline?
towers, right? The towers, because the towers generate the signal. If their
No,
towers are not,
no, no.
not the towers.
You go after something that is tangible. There's no law against filing a lawsuit against an airline.
Uh-huh.
It's much harder to file a lawsuit against 5G. Now that's a different fight. If your fight is, and it's all connected. So if that's your fight, that's great. Great that you're doing that. Um, uh, the the problem is that they don't know the technologies, they don't know the objectives, they don't know who in the military is involved and who's not. They don't know who's using it commercially. They don't know where the funding's coming from. So if you don't know any of that, you can waste all kinds of time, way more than doing an 8 hour workshop or spending 2 hours learning about what you need to learn. So we have
That's
those
why you
issues.
said education is number one, right? Educating ourselves is number one.
Information to action is,
Information to action, right.
yeah.
But all of it is important, right? I feel like that no matter what everybody wants or desires to do, it's all in the nutshell, all important. At least it brings the awareness. At least we are moving towards um, us not tolerating it. We don't want that. Uh,
Well, yes, it was the same thing with GMO foods. When you
oh,
first
that
start, yeah, when you first start talking about GMO foods in early 2000, um, when that first came out, people said, "Oh, it's impossible. You can't engineer foods. You can't genetically alter foods. We've been doing that for decades. Look at the Braca flour." And you say that's not the same thing. The same way that, seed splicing is not genetic engineering. You can take a knife and splice plants together. It's the same thing with weather modification. It is not geoengineering. So if you don't know what you're fighting, and a lot of these attorneys don't, and I'm
Right,
not saying that fighting legislation is bad. I'm saying that you're barking up the wrong tree sometimes in those, and they're not charging enough money for fines. Charging someone $100,000 for spraying over the top of your state doesn't do anything if the people spraying are going to make $2 or $3 billion over the course of the year, making people sick and having to buy pharmaceuticals or destroying plants and having the purchases redirected. And
right. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Just the chain of how it's all connected. It's like the whole thing is connected to it. It's like we have to destroy the whole system. But I don't know if you are into the how we change and it's energetically, right? That's a spiritual awakening. I believe that that will be a force too once we start connecting to our higher selves and understand where the soul comes from. It will help us to look at these atrocities too and trying to not be afraid, right? The fears in human
yeah,
beings,
they do want us to be scared.
they
And
want us to be scared.
yeah,
Yes, they want
and
us to.
in within the transhumanistic agenda and in trapping souls, that fear creates energy, and then that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
darker channels can feed off
Oh,
of.
yes, that they feed on that. Right. So, but I'll let you go. I know you have to run. That was fantastic. It was great. It was good. Oh, I learned so much. And I'll post it on, I'm on YouTube, but it's a smaller channel, but that's okay. On Gap, or I'll just post it on where I am in a Substack and let people learn, and through Telegram. And I'll put if you want to, just to put the information you want people to how to go, but I have your website. If it's the only thing I can list that. Anything else, let me know.
Well,
So anything.
if people want to contact, and if they have any questions, that the best email is BEE, like the insect, beheroic at gmail.com. If they
Oh,
go through
that's
the
the one
website,
that you emailed. That's the one that you emailed me from, right?
yes. If
Yeah,
they go through the website, it takes forever to get to the,
to
regular
you.
account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned you do these presentations, and that's great. It should be where you could be traveling, and maybe that's what you do already. You could be traveling to like a association of farmers, making presentation for them. Colleges are dead to me. I can't get through them. I was trying to do healing arts in a little private college. They blocked me. They said we don't need this information. I said, what? This is what students need. You don't understand that in 10 years their medical degree is in the toilet because AI is going to do it. But if you know how to heal, that's not going to be ever be done by AI. So we've got to see through, and the younger people need to learn healing, not
Mhm.
this pharmaceutical machine. And yeah, they just said, oh, yes, sorry, we don't need that. So I
Yeah.
don't, with colleges, I even wrote to student government telling them I can come do presentations about naturopathic medicine. They never responded, but I don't hold it against them. Maybe they didn't get the email. But sometimes I feel like universities are the most brainwashed community, and the change is not going to come from them, right? It has to be
Mhm.
somewhere else. I love young people too. They're so bright, they're so eager to learn. We can really guide them towards they're looking for this. They're really hungry for this. But that's not the university, right? University is just it's a brain
University is indoctrination driven.
indoctrination. It is
Mhm.
an indoctrination place. Yeah. There is no change there. You can't even, yes, tell them to change a little bit, right? So, but wonderful. I'll let you go. If you don't mind sending me that MP3 or
Of course, I'll send you the link.
that
Yeah.
would be great. That would be terrific, terrific. So I'm so grateful to you.
Thank
Uh,
you so much. Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it. And maybe some people can also contribute. Do you get contributions to your website? There is a donate
Uh,
button.
well, if they want to contribute to us, they can email because I think I told you earlier, but your group might not know. I'm blocked from pretty much all social media.
Oh,
I can't
yes,
get
yes, yes.
on
You told me.
Facebook, can't get on X, can't get on any of my own stuff. I was blocked from LinkedIn, and I think recently, occasionally, I'm blocked from Substack.
Oh, you are. You
Yeah.
are. But let me ask you this personal question. How do you make money? Do you work? Do you have like a regular job, right?
Well, I have several regular jobs, and then I do this project depending on I do Be Heroic like 20 to 40 hours a week, and then I do side jobs about 20 hours a week,
Oh, got you,
20
got
to
you. So
30 hours a week
you can get
to
paid in
make
a
money so that I can run. But we do take donations, but we do that either through uh, we do it. I don't like the government knowing every single thing that we do. And
right.
because we had an issue where someone donated something and infected uh, we had the old style deposit through, what is that called? One of the original ways where you could donate online.
PayPal? No.
Yeah, no, I think, well, it could have been PayPal, but we had an issue where everything just got completely blocked after this one person donated and had a weird message. But there's weird stuff that goes on all the time with it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we,
Oh, I'm sure.
we don't do any public stuff. And the reason, like on Substack, there's a bunch of anti-geoengineering people. And
Yes.
if you don't take your money outside of what's it called? What's the payment thing called on Substack? Fish?
Stripe. Stripe.
Stripe, yeah. If you look at the agreement in Stripe near the end, I read through the whole agreement because I wanted to know if I make money through them, are they going to be sharing my information with everybody? But somewhere near the bottom, they discuss that a portion of the proceeds from Stripe, the percentage that they get, goes to climate projects. And then
Mm.
it says nonprofit or something like that. So they're not, it's not a nonprofit climate thing. And I'm like, if I'm going to be fighting geoengineering, I'm not going to give someone money
Just someone
for
money.
geoengineering. And
Right,
so
right.
I wrote that on someone, on a couple people's Substack. And then on my own Substack, I couldn't get on it anymore.
Got you. I don't use it. I don't get anybody's not paid money. One person contributed, but I didn't feel comfortable using Stripe. They had something else.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
And we don't even know who owns, I mean, well, you can look it up,
Substack. I
but
know. They're all owned by the same people.
yeah,
I feel
they're
like
all,
they're all
yeah.
controlled.
You don't get that big without being corrupt. So
Oh, yes, yes, yes. It's true. But the best way is just to email you directly, right? To me, email you directly. If somebody would like to contribute, then email you directly, and that's it. And you will send them, maybe even
we
the
just tell them, yeah, that's all that needs to be said for that.
right, right, right. If they would like to do
But
that.
we take anything from $5 to as much money as anyone wants to give. One of the things, like I I travel pretty far to present, and sometimes the presenters can afford to pay me, and other times they can't.
Uh-huh.
I was just asked to do a project in Texas in April with a bunch of other speakers, Catherine Austin Fitz and
Oh,
Judy
Catherine.
Mikovits, and yeah.
Yes, they're
So
right. Uh-huh.
I was asked to do that, but I have. They said we don't have any money to get you out here, but we really want you to talk, and so as with most things, kind of geoengineering in the freedom world, and it's kind of an afterthought. But
Mm,
I have a few small sponsors for that. But I work so that I can make money to go do my job, and
right, right, right.
it does gets frustrating. So if anyone
It's
does want to,
frustrating.
yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I'll look around and I mean, sometimes I feel like we should be more, but maybe it's not there yet. Maybe it's a couple of years people will be tapping in energetically. Yeah, it's you know what also get mixed up. A lot of these figures are controlled, right? Catherine Austin Fitts, from what I found out by just reading, she's not completely as you and I, right? You know, a lot of them are, they portray themselves as part of a simple people like us who are trying to do a good thing, but they actually still part of the of that.
No,
It's just
she does. I
she
mean,
just
she talks about her
she does
background
say the
very
truth,
openly.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she does say the truth. Well, that's the thing about the psychological operations. It's 99% of truth. Um, that and then 1% they don't tell you. That's when that is the most important thing. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been listening to her all these years and I resonate. But then when you look into her background, she's really connected to all those people.
She's extremely connected,
She's
but
really
she is.
connected.
I spoke at an event with her, not next to her with her, but at an event
Right, she was
uh,
there too.
early 2020 or something like that. And so the speakers, I have a back room for speakers, and everyone, people hanging out and eating and talking, and she was talking at one table, and we were at another table, but I kind of, I heard what she was discussing, and she's very, she's open about stuff. She did what she did because that was the area. And anyway, she's familiar definitely with geoengineering and
Oh,
5G. Her
yeah, yeah, yeah.
presentation
She
out
was
there,
on that.
yeah, is not on that topic. It was someone,
It would
anyway.
provide the money. But yeah, yeah, yeah. We just have to be ourselves kind of careful with those people because they do have their own agenda too. I'm not saying that Catherine Austin
Oh,
Fitts is,
no, no. That was what frustrated me with the woman that Kat was talking about.
oh, we're not, see, but right. Well, some people think that she's a man. She's not a woman.
No,
So,
no, she's a woman. She's gay, but that
her
doesn't mean
Adam
anything.
apple is real big.
Oh, no, I don't know about. I mean, I disagree with that.
Somebody, somebody suggested, but
I don't care if I don't care what she is. I just care that
I agree with you.
she
Yeah,
cheated. That's what I care about. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you. It doesn't matter if she's a man who became a woman, if she's a woman, who cares? That's the most important. If she, I liked her too. She was doing some good posts and everything. There's also a really great organization. I'll send you. They do their things in Mexico. Last year they did a great and they invite a lot of just people who do a lot of community outreach and but they do pay. I believe they do pay because they charge you to come to their event and
mhm.
so they pay the speakers there. And I was telling Catherine Kat about it but kind of was hard to hold but then I saw Catherine Austin Fitz was presenting there too so I kind of got a little bit disappointed because I want regular people, right? I don't want those big the ones that promoting themselves, whether they're connected with the leads or not, I don't know. But I want people like you, I want people like Kat, people like a lot of just simple people. It's hard to understand who is controlled, who's not, but there are people who just honestly doing moms or people who are passionate about the environment, just trying to do good work. And they don't may not have all this millions of followers, but they just may be the driving force
Yeah, yeah,
to help, right?
yes.
So so that's good. That's wonderful. But thank you so much, Nikki, for finding time. I truly appreciate it. We'll continue collaborating. We'll come up. I hope, and I'm sure we'll stop it, right? We'll stop it. We'll try it. Well, at least we will do our best to do all we can
Mhm.
to roll. And like my little daughter who's 7 was saying today, said,
Oh,
well, we need to stop this. And then she said, well, maybe we'll get worse, Mama, when I'm gonna be bigger. I said, well, I don't know, we'll stop, we'll do something. So they're aware, of course, they see all of it too.
yeah. Yep, definitely harder for kids and young adults because they're never gonna be able to have what we had.
Right, right, right. But thinking about it differently, that their souls chose this time, right? They knew what they're going for, right? So that thought helps me a lot. If we understand the souls where they come from, they chose this time, right? It wasn't by accident, right? My daughter didn't just show it up here. She chose me. She chose this lifetime. She knows. Her soul knows what she's up for, but she wanted to volunteer and come to this realm. She wanted to come to this dimension and do things here, right? So it's their choice, right? So we have to understand, even though we feel sad for them, that they're not going to see something we saw in the past, but it's their choice. And we should just help them, right? But every soul chooses to be here, from what I understand, right? Not that I have any extrasensory abilities, but we choose to be here. So you and I chose to be at this beautiful time, but this is, I guess, some challenges too, right?
Mhm, mhm.
To go through. So, well, I'll let you go. I'll stop talking, and have a lovely day, and we'll be connected.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you. Let's see, how do I get out of here?